Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing a Pokemon that got updated at the start of the season that I've basically seen no hype around since, and that is Shadow Metang. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Emmy, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now Shadow Metang, obviously it's going to be a Psychic and Steel type Pokemon, and its new move is Fury Cutter. With Fury Cutter's ridiculous pacing, Metang is able to spam out 10 turn Shadow Psyshocks, which can honestly overwhelm a lot of teams. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at a very underrated Pokemon, Shadow Metang. Hopping into game number 1, picking up a good lead, but a very tough opponent, leading Swampert into Shadow Drapion, but this is Dancing Rob as the opponent, the first ever Pokemon Go World Champion. Swampert is going to win charge attack priority over that Shadow Drapion. Drapion does end up baiting with an Aqua Tail, which is successfully no-shielded. Drapion does have a pacing advantage in this matchup, and now that the Swampert is so low, it's just going to be spamming out Aqua Tails. Swampert will return fire with the Hydro Cannon. Opponent has to shield or risk losing the energy. They are going to shield, they farm up. Oh no, they play to a CMP tie that they do not win. A very unfortunate miscount from the opponent, and down goes Drapion. Drapion lost so much energy. In comes Dusclops. Dusclops will get a healthy energy head start. This is the Shadow Dusclops as well, which means the Shadow Punches will actually do real damage to the Galarian Corsola. Galarian Corsola can survive this next Shadow Punch, but not super well, so we will see the final shield come up. Corsola can just knock out with the Nightshade, and that's exactly what it's going for. Corsola will be able to pick up the KO, and it all comes down to what does the opponent have in the back, and they have a Shadow Lapras, and this is absolutely game over. Shadow Metang absolutely feasts on Lapras. Shadow Metang, if it's switched in instantly, can very comfortably win the zeros. In this instance, however, with Corsola banking the move, this game is already over as well, because Lapras can never get to the 3 Arias that it needs to win this game. Lapras is going to farm up as much as it possibly can, but with Metang's speedy pacing, it's just not enough. They can KO the Metang, but they don't have the move loaded for the Corsola. So Corsola gets the fire off the Nightshade, down goes the Lapras, and that's a good game. Hopping into game number 2, an amazing lead, Shadow Swampert into Talonflame, and the Talonflame is not switching out. This is a massive surprise, as this is a pretty terrible matchup for the Talonflame. Something in the back must also be weak to Swampert. Swampert is more than happy to commit the shield. It has a pretty significant pacing advantage. That's going to be a flame charge coming through from the opponent. Swampert accidentally overtapped, tried to do 2 and the move, and now Swampert will be forced to go down both shields. The Talonflame should basically always be letting this go. They get a shield advantage out of this matchup. They can't ask for any better than that. In comes Lapras. There's going to be the safe switch to Shadow Metang. Shadow Metang over-farming slightly before firing off this Psyshock. Psyshock will do very nice damage. Opponent going to bank that energy and send out Unova Stunfisk. Unova Stunfisk may honestly be surprised by the pacing of Metang here, as with Metang's small energy head start, I think Metang can actually get a second Psyshock before they get a second Mud Bomb. The Psyshock is going to land. It's a race to the move, and Metang outpaces. The speed on Metang, oh my goodness. Psyshock just cleanly knocks out. In comes the Lapras. Lapras is never Psy-waving down. That's a double resistance to Psy-wave. Lapras forced to fire off the Aria to pick up the knockout, and now in comes Galarian Corsola. Galarian Corsola has gotten this Lapras exceedingly low. Lapras will fire off a last-second charge attack. It's Sparkling Aria number 1, but they cannot get another move, as they just get astonished down. Very tricky lead in the next match, Shadow Swampert against Primeape. Primeape obviously can apply a ton of pressure with the threat of close combat, but this trainer doesn't even build up to it. That's a huge error from that opponent, as now this is a very easy no-shield, and Swampert will actually put the first shielding pressure of the match. Swampert is going to switch out. In comes Shadow Metang. Shadow Metang, anytime it can get up on energy, it makes its already absurd pacing just so strong. Metang going to fire off Psyshock. Is the opponent willing to double shield? No, they are not. They're getting KO'd. In comes Golisopod. Golisopod going to get outpaced here due to this energy head start, and Psyshock is going to do big damage. Psyshock is going to land. Golisopod farming up, and they accidentally farm too much. People are just not prepared for this pacing. They're forced to give up a shield, and now in comes Galarian Corsola. Galarian Corsola very happy to absorb Aqua Jets here. Opponent is going to fire off Aqua Jet number 1, and not trusting themselves to survive the Astonish, will go for Aqua Jet number 2. It turns out they did barely survive that, and we won't know what they had in the back. Clearly, it was weak to Corsola, as the opponent is going to resign the match. Picking up an interesting lead in the next match, Shadow Swampert versus Shadow Scizor. Opponent safe switches into Lapras, and that will quickly be answered with the Shadow Metang. Shadow Metang does have a pacing advantage over Lapras. Lapras is connecting with the Sparkling Aria, and now Metang gets to farm up one shy of the back-to-back Psyshocks. Psyshock should cleanly two-shot here with the Fury Cutter damage, and there it is, the pacing advantage, the double resistance to Psywave. Shadow Metang does a great job at shutting this Pokemon down. In comes Dusclops. Dusclops can get a farm down, but they're going to pay a heavy price. Metang making yet another Psyshock, and now we see an aggressive pivot into Galarian Corsola. Galarian Corsola just wanted to get ahead on energy. The Scizor did one bullet punch before switching. In comes Scizor, and they will get to fire off the Night Slash on very good timing. Just gonna let this through. Night Slash does not KO. That's an incredible IV Galarian Corsola. 2-15-10. And being able to force that shield from the Scizor is a turning point in this matchup, as now the Swampert up a shield is very, very comfortable. Hydro obviously will immediately delete Scizor, so Scizor is forced to give up its final shield. Scizor can get shields back from the Swampert, but Swampert is just too far ahead thanks to that Galarian Corsola. In comes Dusclops. Dusclops will fire off the Shadow Punch, but now all Swampert needs to do is just farm up to the back-to-back moves and be able to take the win. And that's exactly what Swampert is going to do. No sense in overfarming anymore. The energy to win the game is here. The Hydro Cannon, number 2, into the Scizor. This is going to be massive overkill. Scizor probably gets KO'd 2 to 3 times over, and that's a win. Great lead in the next match, Shadow Swampert into Gligar. Safe switch Lapras, once again answered with the Shadow Metang. Shadow Metang, it looked like, got a slightly slower switch in than last time. Metang is going to farm up here and actually deciding to go for the Gyro Ball this time. So Metang, a bit of a switch in strategy considering the slightly slower switching, going to try and go for a Gyro Ball and a farm down. This will allow Metang to exit with a massive amount of energy as long as Lapras does not make one final move, which thankfully it does not. The Fury Cutters added up quite significantly, and back in comes Gligar. Gligar is going to be pressured quite a bit here from the back-to-back Psyshocks. Psyshock number 2 is going to be reached. This should be getting the Gligar deep into the red. Gligar is going to no-shield. They're going to switch. In comes a Feraligatr, and that still doesn't get the farm down. This Shadow Metang is putting on a clinic. Now Feraligatr is going to be met with Swampert. Swampert always going to be no shielding, as this is a move that it can survive. Hydro Cannon lands, that's devastating damage. Sludge will get some nice chip or potentially force the final shield, and now it's all up to Galarian Corsola to close out the game. Galarian Corsola will always be shielding the move from the Feraligatr, as that's going to do more damage than any move from Gligar. In comes Gligar. The Astonish does go through, so Gligar's only getting one move. It's the Dig, and that's just not nearly enough damage. In comes Feraligatr, and Feraligatr is going to resign the match. A familiar foe returns in the next match, Shadow Swampert versus Shadow Scizor. Scizor just going to opt for the Night Slash. This is a move that Swampert can survive, but Shadow on Shadow, that still does way too much damage. Scizor going to easily commit the shield here because the Hydro is just going to cleanly one-shot, and now we actually see a safe switch into Galarian Corsola, and the opponent throws on alignment. I think they may have thought that Emmy got the one-turn switch in there, which would have been perfect timing to throw instantly, but unfortunately it was the zero-turn switch, and Corsola gets an entire Astonish for free. Opponent sends out Gastrodon, and it's incredibly nice to be able to bait out the Gastrodon. Obviously, Gastrodon would completely destroy Shadow Metang. Earth Power is going to be shielded, and now Corsola is going to farm up just shy of the back-to-back Nightshades. Is the opponent going to invest in the Gastrodon? No, they're just going to throw it away, and instead take a shield advantage for the endgame, and it's going to be a Lapras once again. And that's been the theme of this video. Lapras, obviously, it's an amazingly flexible pick. It's so strong, but it's just continually having such a miserable day anytime Metang is on the field. Metang, more than happy to absorb that Sparkling Aria. Opponent gonna send in Shadow Scizor, and that will force energy from the Metang. Metang almost at the back-to-back Psyshock, so Scizor is just gonna let this go. In comes Lapras, and now Lapras will be forced to give up the final shield. Lapras can't afford to overfarm too much, as these Fury Cutters are nearly leading to a full farm down. They're forced to pick up the knockout with the Sparkling Aria, and now it's gonna be a race here. Can Corsola get the farm down? There's a switch and a catch onto the Swampert. What a play. Could have just stayed in with the Corsola and then mud-shot it down with the Swampert to win. But I'll never say no to a bad manners catch to seal a win. We have an absolute blast from the past in the next game, Shadow Swampert against Morpeko. Morpeko has completely fallen off the face of the planet. It already was seeing no competitive play, and then with Dedenne being released, Dedenne really felt like it was the nail in the coffin. The opponent staying in here is a pretty massive surprise. We're actually going to see a safe switch into Metang, and Metang is answered with a Carbink. Oh, trainer. They are just triple weak to the Metang. They did bank a bunch of energy on the Morpeko, but Metang is about to absolutely destroy. Metang lands the Gyro Ball. That's double super effective damage. Carbink goes for the Rock Slide, and I think they're going to get resisted Fury Cutter down. And they are Fury Cutter down. Oh my goodness, Metang with 100 energy. What do you even do? And apparently the answer is bring in Superior and lose the game. Superior just going to be hit with Psyshock after Psyshock after Psyshock. Shadow Metang just absolutely unrelenting. In comes Morpeko. Morpeko, are they going to actually full send here? They will. Trying to call an Aura Wheel. The Aura Wheel will not happen, but Swampert is going to get the farm down. And this is actually going to be a 2-shield flex. The Shadow Metang, they just had nothing for it. Their entire team gets completely destroyed by Metang, and that is game over. Speaking of game over, this lead might be game over for this entire team. Greninja, obviously a Pokemon that I featured pretty recently, is so bad for this team. Hydro Cannon lands, nearly one-shotting the Shadow Swampert. Swampert will return fire with the Sludge. Sludge is going to be shielded. There's the safe switch to Metang. These Fury Cutters add up quite a bit, but Metang is forced to commit the shield. The opponent going to go for the Hydro Cannon, and now they send out Typhlosion. Typhlosion, they're down on energy. They will get outpaced. Psyshock will do huge damage here. This is the regular Typhlosion, so Typhlosion can actually survive the Psyshock, but not by much. Typhlosion now up to 80 energy. They're going to exit with 100 energy. And at this point, you just have to send in the Swampert to force energy here. The opponent will probably just blind throw the back-to-back Blast Burns. In comes the Swampert. Swampert is going to be hit with a Thunder Punch. In comes the Corsola, and they throw the Incinerate. A huge mistake from the opponent. In comes Greninja. Greninja tried to go for the CMP tie there, but Corsola not going to fall for it. Corsola going to be shielding up the Hydro Cannon, picking up the knockout with the Nightshade, and it all comes down to can Corsola win the Zero Shield versus whatever's in back. The final Pokemon is Dedenne, and the answer is yes. With the energy advantage that Corsola has, Corsola will take this game because 2 Parabolic Charges or 1 Play Rough will not be enough to knock out. The opponent is going to fire off energy here. Probably going to be the Play Rough. It is the Play Rough, and it's just not going to be enough to KO. Even if they got the 2 Parabolics, the Corsola was just too healthy. Either way, Nightshade KOs the Dedenne, and that's a win. We've got Spice in the next match. It's a Shadow Swampert versus Shadow Palkia. The safe switch Metang answered with a Shadow Typhlosion, and the opponent is breaking out the glass cannons here. Oh my goodness. Psyshock from Metang. Oh, it's actually the non-Shadow Typhlosion. I thought it was the Shadow for a sec, but I guess that just was the Shadow Aura from the Metang. The opponent is forced to go down a shield, so Typhlosion counter-switching into Metang and trying to farm down has not gone well for the Typhlosions. In comes the Swampert. Swampert going to commit a shield here as Typhlosion is going to fire off energy. Typhlosion just going to go for the double Thunder Punch instead of going for 1 Blast Burn. I guess that way they guarantee a little bit of damage. Swampert exiting with a move. The opponent just going to throw on alignment here, firing off the Aqua Tail just to guarantee the shield. And now in the back, they send in a Blossom. Okay, that is not what I was expecting to see. Blossom takes huge damage. This is a Bullet Seed Blossom. I've seen some Blossoms with Acid. I have not seen any with Bullet Seed. Even with Acid, I think Blossom, it's a bit of a tough Pokemon to use. Back in comes the Shadow Palkia. Shadow Palkia winning charge attack priority. Can Palkia pick up the knockout here? Galarian Corsola is very bulky, and Corsola will hang on. Corsola will need to survive 1 more Dragon Tail to make it to the last second Nightshade, but it cannot. Will Palkia get to the move here? No, it will not. The Mud Shots KO, and Swampert survives. Hopping into the final match, Shadow Swampert versus Galarian Corsola from the opponent. Very happy to catch the Corsola here and not on the Shadow Metang. That would obviously be a huge problem for Metang. Hydro Cannon is going to connect. Opponent under tapping here, so they will give a free Mud Shot to the Swampert, but no one's going to catch on alignment, so for them, it probably makes sense, as that way they can guarantee that the move is not being caught. Sludge is going to connect, and now, since they are a Fury Cutter Golisopod, they're just going to get fully farmed down by the Galarian Corsola. Galarian Corsola is more than happy to absorb Aqua Jets in exchange for a ton of energy. the opponent will make Aqua Jet number 2, and that's very okay for the Corsola. Oh, Corsola actually decides to shield here. So Corsola really valuing HP, down 2 shields does make this a little bit uncomfortable. So Corsola is going to go for the Nightshade, opponent is going to shield it. Corsola making it to Nightshade number 2. The opponent, they're getting all these Astonishes through. Can they get a farm down? They say no, they cannot. They were worried about a simultaneous KO, so they are just going to fire off the Nightshade to pick up the KO. In comes Swampert. Swampert gets the Mudshot down. In the back is Clodsire. And unfortunately, Metang is not going to be needed for this game, as the opponent is going to resign the match. Whether it was the Metang firing off Psyshocks or the Swampert firing off Hydro Cannons, there was just nothing that Clodsire was ever going to be able to do there. All in all, I think this Shadow Metang, I think it's a very underrated anti-meta Pokemon at this point in the meta. Unfortunately, I have the rank 2 regular Metang, but it really seems in a lot of matchups, the shadow damage on the Psyshock is really what's preferred, and unfortunately my regular obviously does not have the shadow bonus. So I would really love to get to test a Mon myself, as I often really feel like I can get a feel on what the Mon can and can't do after trying it myself, but I've kind of struck out with the Rocket Grunts. I haven't been able to find a Beldum Grunt in quite a while, so until I find a Beldum Grunt and we get a frustration event, I won't be able to try it out myself, but I think being able to get to 10 turn, same type attack bonus Shadow Psyshocks is something that does give Metang a lot of anti-meta value. I would say of all the new Mons, I would probably argue that Metang is the one that I probably have the worst meta win rate against as far as me queuing into it, just because it's not really something that I consider when team building, and it's something that can really end up core breaking me, especially if I end up in a scenario where I'm down a shield or I end up giving up a farm down to Metang. I've just been completely destroyed by the thing. So while I don't think it's top meta by any means, I think it's a really interesting anti-meta pick, and in the right hands, I think Shadow Metang can be an absolute weapon. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.